Welcome to the Help for Leaders podcast. I'm Stacey Harris, and I'm passionate about showing leaders the power of communication and how it can transform their organizations, from Fortune 500 boardrooms all the way to brand new startups. As a leader, your actions and your words transform people and your company culture. So join me as I share tips and insights for elevating your leadership abilities as well as your team's performance. Let's dive right in. Communicating with the high D, direct individual. That's what we're going to be talking about on today's episode of the Help for Leaders podcast. I'm Stacey Harris. I'm so glad that you're joining me today. If you haven't listened to last week's episode, we actually talked with an entire team. And today we're going to be talking with Josh Delgado. Josh, welcome to the podcast.
I'm glad to be here.
Super excited to have you joining me today. So I want you just to, first of all, just introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about Josh.
Yeah, well, my name is Josh Delgado. I'm the Executive Vice President for Increase U and also a network of companies ranging from financial industry and a business acceleration company. We do a lot of stuff. You do
juggle lots of things.
A little bit about me. I have a wife. I have a daughter. She's amazing.
Tell us how old your daughter is.
She's about to be 10 months.
Oh,
about to be 10 months. So, but yeah, I love like getting to work with people, getting to build teams, getting to build businesses. And I care about it a lot. I care about building strong people. I care about building things that are going to last, and I care about doing it for my family. So a lot of what like drives me and what motivates me is basically seeing my family be able to live in a fantastic life and really thrive. So
good.
Yeah.
So good. Well, I'm excited to have Josh here with us. We're going to be talking about his preferences, his tendencies in communication from that very direct, dominant style. He's high D, high I, very low S, very low C. So his secondary style is actually pioneering, that really low C style. So I want you to kind of lean in and listen and learn some things about that direct communication style and how we can communicate more effectively as individuals, because we all know high direct individuals in our families, on our teams, in our organizations. And so I'm hopeful that we're going to glean a lot from just your preferences and your tendencies. So Josh, I want to just start by asking you, how do you prefer to communicate? What is your preference? Just in the perfect world, perfect team, how would you go about communicating with others?
Super direct, right to the point. Like really valuing my time, really valuing the time of the people that I'm communicating with, and honestly just doing it in a way that drives things forward quickly. So whether it's with conflict, whether it's with something dealing with results, like just get it all out there. Let's get it all on the table and let's figure out a solution for it and move and act on that solution. So
I love it.
Very direct.
Very direct. So
I
just go there.
Yes.
Go there.
Yes.
What if someone gets really verbose and kind of all in the weeds, presenting a topic? What's going on in your mind when they're doing that?
Usually it's how can I get it back on track? So, and usually I make a decision pretty quickly on how to get it back on track. So it's not like I'm internally processing like, where do I go with this? How do I get this back? It's usually like, okay, I think about it for maybe 5, 10, 20 seconds, and then I'll bring us back on track. So like, especially in company meetings, which sometimes, I can be the culprit sometimes because being high I as well, I love to dream. And so that's even one of my time wasters is like, if you dream with me, we're going to waste a lot of time dreaming because I dream big and I love to cast a lot of vision. But yeah, when that happens, usually I'm like, how can we get this back on track right now? Because I've got something else to get to here in the next like 20 minutes. So how can I get this on the rails here?
Yes, yep. Yes. So good. Okay, so I'm assuming this is probably going to be a very similar response, but I want to ask you, when people are communicating with you, how can they communicate most effectively? What's your preference when people are talking to you?
Really clear communication. Once again, directness is a big deal for me. So like if someone needs something from me or if they're asking something of me, just come and ask it. Sometimes, with a super direct person, sometimes people can feel, I think, a little bit intimidated by that.
Sure.
So sometimes that can actually cause them to go more like around the issue, which actually amplifies the issue.
Yeah.
So I like when people just come right out and say what they need from me, because then it allows me to get it done faster. So
good.
Yeah.
So did you hear that? The preference, directness, communicate with clarity, get to the point, don't talk around a topic, hit it head on. Is that what you're
Even
saying?
as I'm saying this, I'm like, man, I've said direct a lot. I feel like I'm wasting time by just saying the same thing over and over.
I love it. So good. Okay, so you mentioned time wasters. Tell me about some of those time wasters from that high D, high I perspective, even that low C style. What are some of your time wasters?
Yeah, for me, I have like really strong people around me that are very good with organization. Because especially being someone who's running an organization, I've had to employ those people so that way I can actually thoroughly do my job and propel it forward without having my weakness being structure and organization, these types of things. So what I really love to do, because that's not a strength of mine, and I would say that can easily become a time waster of mine as well, when I get too much into the weeds with trying to build structure. So like down into the weeds of structure. As far as big picture, like, hey, here's how I see this operating, here's how we can empower this person to do this and this person to do this so things flow more efficiently, that's where I thrive. But when I get into the weeds of like thinking practically on like, okay, what does this person need to actually do, that's where it can become a little bit of a time waster for me, and that's why I have people around me that are very strong at that. Another one, like I said, is just when I get into vision casting mode. So with our CEO, when we get into a meeting and we just start dreaming about our companies and all the things that we're doing, that could easily be hour and a half, 2 hours wasted. Not wasted, but when there's a lot of things and deadlines that need to be done, if it's not intentional, it can feel like wasted time because we're dreaming for the next 10 things when we're still trying to work on the first 5-10 things.
Sure.
So that's a big one for me too.
Yeah. And does that feel frustrating for you? I mean, I've heard you talk about efficiency, tasks, but then I'm a dreamer too, and I love to talk. But then I feel this. Do you always kind of feel that pull back to get the things done?
Well, I feel the pull between both.
Okay.
Because I'm I feel like I flex between those two a lot. Between like the very much like dominant visionary type of person, but also the very like integrator type of role. And in our organization, my role is like being the integrator. I'm the person that helps take the vision of our CEO and actually puts it into action. So I feel the internal pull between those because I do both, and I really like thrive in both. So I've had to catch myself, because sometimes there's just some days where I want to be in a dreaming mode. There's other days where I know that there's a lot of stuff that has to get done that day or that week or that quarter, and I know that we have to, get XYZ done to keep us on track. So I feel the internal pull. It's not necessarily one way or the other though, because I'm pretty high on both.
Yes, you are. Yeah. This is his style right here. We've got it plotted on our nice little disc cube. I love it. Well, as you were saying that, I was thinking about behavior is situational, right? And so you are leaning into the behaviors that are inducive or conducive for that particular situation and really leaning into your strengths, it sounds like to me. So you are flexing. So I came to your organization, I don't know, a couple weeks ago, and we did some team training, and we talked a lot about style flexibility. And so did you learn anything? Was there anything that were kind of aha moments or things that have happened since that time where we were talking about our styles and really talking about style flexibility, where you've kind of leaned into that, and how did that work out for you?
Yeah, I'm trying to think, because there's a few specific instances. I mean, it was literally the next day. There was something that came up, and I had to address it, and I had to flex to be able to address the specific thing. And I mentioned one in the roundtable discussion where there was a time where someone was kind of wasting my time a little bit. I got pulled into a thing where a guy was working with one of our employees on a project, and I got pulled into it. But the two goals for each of us within coming in that moment were different. And so this guy's coming and he's addressing this thing while I'm trying to like intentionally put my time into helping him with something else. And so I said, hey guys, I'm just gonna go and do this at my computer, and we can, we'll touch base on this in a little bit. And I got to talk with that guy after and say, hey, this is what I was feeling in that moment. I was actually feeling like my time wasn't really being valued because I got pulled into something when I have a full schedule today. And then there was another thing happening simultaneously. So that happened a couple times right back to back within a couple days after that. And it hasn't happened since then.
Interesting.
Because we got to talk through it and worked it out and honestly just shone some light on it. And we realized like, oh, this thing can kind of happen sometimes. It's a frustration for me. So as I was communicating, like, this is a frustration for me. And as people are flexing and as we're trying to adapt, it's gotten better. So it's been awesome, yeah.
I love it.
It feels great for me because I'm like, man, I can get to my stuff a little bit faster and I feel like less of my time is wasted.
Yeah.
Unintentionally, obviously.
Right. That's so good. Well, I love all the hats that you wear in your organization, and I love how you've pulled your team together and even how you've made this podcast happen. So I was just thinking about when you were talking about your team and how you're a big picture visionary thinker, that high D, high I, but you don't get really into the weeds. Well, this podcast is really, it was kind of a dream of mine of doing something on social media, but you're the one who pitched the podcast to me, and so I love it. But that was the big picture visionary, but he's got a team that you can't see that are behind these cameras that you're going to see because we had, if you haven't watched last week's or listened to last week's episode, they were at the table, and then over the next 3 weeks, we're going to have more conversation with each of the 4 styles, and they're the ones doing all the things that you pitched to me, saying, yeah, we can do this, but you're not filming this podcast. You're not running the audio.
I don't know anything about that.
You're not doing any of that. Yet you had this vision, this idea. And so I love how we all work together as a team.
Yeah.
And I love partnering with your team in several ways. Me as a consultant, helping you grow as a team, as an organization, learning about your behavioral styles, your driving forces. I think we're going to talk about EQ at some point and talk about emotions. And you guys partnering with me, helping me with this podcast. So I think it's been a win-win.
I'll say for our team, you're a delight to work with, and I get probably the most feedback about you as a client. Obviously, you coming in and enlightening us on how we can run a better organization has been amazing. But so it's mutual. Yeah.
So good. Well, thanks, Josh, for all your insight. It's been really informative. So I hope you've learned something today as we've been communicating with the high D direct individual, all about his preferences and tendencies in communication. I hope you'll join me next week because we're going to be talking to Taylor, who's a very high I outgoing individual, about his preferences and tendencies in communication. Thank you for joining us today. You have the potential to communicate, engage, and lead with significant impact, and my goal is to help you do just that. Whether you're trying to get that next big promotion, scale your small business, or manage a team of thousands, there's always room for growth, and I can help you get there. Go to disc-report.com and find out what style of leader you are by downloading my free ebook on communication. Until next time, lead well and prosper.